Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 3, Long Time. So this was a very touching, very sad episode. It was very emotional, and it revolved around the two characters of Frank and Bill from the game, with many changes from the game from what I've read, because I've never played the game. These changes, I think, were made for the best. It made it more emotional. It made it more touching. However, there is still one change that probably will upset the LGBT. But I feel like the changes that were made from the game was to shed a better light on LGBT characters, because in the game it gets very, very, very dark. And yeah. Now, I will say the characters of Frank and Bill are pretty cool, and I still can't believe what happened to them. And so, like, with this episode, it is still very zombie light. In fact, there is only one zombie, and he's under rubble, so he's not even a threat. I don't understand it. I assume this was a game about zombies. And yet there still really are no zombies in this episode, or in this series, I should say. And I want to see freaking zombies and everything. That's why I'm watching this show. That and to support like Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, because I am a fan of those two. And so it's really disappointing that this show that is sold on zombies and everything from the trailer has no zombies in it. It's like, I got enough of that for like what, 3 or 4 years with The Walking Dead. I'm not here to see that crap again. I don't want to see a big dramatic show that's supposed to be about zombies, but yet I never see a zombie. And if I do see a zombie, it's very quick and there's barely any action. In fact, there was a little action in this, but they cut away from it really, really fast. And it's like, I don't want to see another drama about zombies, not to only see no zombies. But, the stuff between like Joel and Ellie are very brief, because it's mostly a flashback episode that has to do with that of Frank and Bill. And I remember watching this, thinking to myself, because at that time I didn't know who Frank and Bill was until later on I researched it. And I was just kind of like, their story is very sweet and touching, but what does that have to do with the rest of like this episode moving the plot forward? Then I kind of figured out, oh, okay, and everything. This makes a little bit of sense from episode 1 with the whole radio playing 80s music and the whole code that Ellie deciphered and everything. And also the last episode when Tess was all like, get them to like Frank and Bill and stuff. And I will say, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Van Helsing, when there was like a couple that was originally straight and they turned out to be gay. Only difference here, because, the whole vampire apocalypse from Van Helsing and being so many years under vampire rule and stuff. But here's a little bit different. And here it just starts off with two guys who are automatically gay, as opposed to Van Helsing, where it was two straight guys who later decided to turn gay and stuff because they fell in love with each other. And so with here, we actually get like true representation of the LGBT community, with two characters who built their relationship and it grew as time passed, 10 years to be exact. And so like with this episode, we see Joel and we see like, Ellie, and they're just like camping out and this and that. And Joel let her have her jacket, or his jacket, because it was really cold. And, I have to say, they keep saying Joel's this mean guy, he's brutal, but I've never really got that impression. But just him talking to Ellie, I'm like, oh crap, dude, you actually kind of scared me a little bit. I'm afraid you might Will Smith Ellie in the face if she like does the wrong thing. And so, they head out to this place to get some supplies because Joel like stashed some stuff there. And so Ellie's like wandering around and she goes down to an apartment down below. A compartment. And there she sees a zombie under the rubble and she gets very curious. And because she knows she's young and she grew up during the apocalypse, so she don't know nothing about the old school life and everything. She doesn't even know what a seatbelt is to a car. And so with her knife, she cuts open the skin, and it's very reminiscent of the last episode when they cut that woman's ankle and they had like this fungus, like mold stuff growing underneath the tissue. It's gross, it's nasty. But then Ellie, with no remorse, just takes the zombie out and kills it. And she does it in a very cold-hearted manner. I don't know if she's just like being like Carl, who's just like very curious, or if there's like a darker side to her. And so Bella's fake American accent is getting much better and stuff. Sometimes, like in the last episode, she lost a little bit of it in one scene, but here she keeps it the whole time. And the thing about Ellie, she has a hard time. She's hard-headed. Like, she does not like listening to Joel. And because she wants a gun so badly, but he won't let her have it. And then there's emphasis when she sees his tiny gun on his waist side. And there's a reason for that much later on how he got it. And so, like, he leaves his assault rifle back at the place and stashes it, talking about he's low on ammo and it won't do him no good. One, during a zombie apocalypse, you keep your weapon on you at all times. Two, you can still use it to scare people and everything, because they don't know there's no bullets in it. So anyway, I thought that was a really dumb idea and stuff. If The Walking Dead taught us anything, you keep your weapon on you at all times. And so they head into Bill and Frank's. And he tells them that, he tells her that Frank is the nice one. And we find out why. So before they get there, they pass through a cemetery, a bunch of like dead bones. Well, bones are already dead. Dead bodies on the ground. And it's nothing but their bones and clothes. Basically, the government couldn't contain the virus. So people who they assumed were infected, they just took them out and threw them out on the field. It's really cold and everything. It reminds me of what happened to our pandemic. When it was revealed there's a big old pit full of like dead bodies and stuff because they ran out of room in the hospitals and couldn't like incinerate them. Boy, just think how close we came. And so like we didn't get into our flashback, and it shows the green outfit that this person had from the clothes we saw on the bones. And basically it's Bill. He's a survivalist and everything. He is a hardcore conservative. And, his home is decked out with full of guns and that no tread me flag and everything. The same flag that people are pissed at Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt, man, like, makes you start to wonder and everything, because it's kind of like that flag used to mean something completely different. The no tread on me, I think it's no don't tread on me flag with the rattlesnake and like the yellow flag. It used to mean something completely different back in the day, but now it's very rooted in racism and everything. And so like he realizes what he's been preparing for is coming, so he's gonna prepare even more. When the world goes to like crap, he heads out to Home Depot of all places because he's conservative. And he grabs a bunch of supplies and he turns the gas on at his place and he booby traps his entire place. So he's been living there for the longest time, and 4 years later, we see the places are decked out a bit more. There's like electrified fence, there's tripwire, there are flamethrowers, there are guns attached to poles, so when you hit the tripwire, it'll like take you out. His place is booby trapped. And so like somebody falls in his pit, was able to get through like his perimeter, and it's Frank. Frank just came from like a quarantine zone and is completely ran over, and I think he's looking to get to Boston. And so he said, he'll only be there for a few days. Well, of course, Bill is like very weary of him, doesn't know him, does not trust him. Basically, Bill starts to come around, and so as like Frank is starting to get a shower, Bill has a really unusual look on his face. This started to remind me that, what this one YouTuber said about episode 3 has a lot of heavy LGBT content. And I'm thinking to myself, I think I know who she's talking about, because we have not met Ellie's like girlfriend who is dead yet. We'll get to those flashbacks in probably another episode and everything. And so, like, these two start to talk, and so Bill cooks some dinner and everything. Bill, ironically, is starting to accept people in his life. He's a survivalist, he's a loner, he does not like being around nobody. Hey, I don't like being around nobody either. And so, like, I can totally understand that, because the zombie apocalypse would ever happen, I am gonna go far into the woods and stay by myself. Or I'm gonna stay in my home and just like hopefully nobody will be around in the neighborhood. And so, like, it's weird to see him like come around to people, because he doesn't want to have nothing to do with anybody. But Frank is able to bring that side out in him. So then at one point in time, Frank said, I'll only be there for a few days, and he wants to play the piano. And so, like, he plays it, but then he starts to play a song, which is what the title of this episode is, I think. And so, like, then, Bill starts to show a very huge emotional side to him, like saying that he lost somebody. And so Frank starts to test him, be like, what was her name? And he's all like, it wasn't a woman. He realizes then and there that Bill is gay. Very shocking, but I knew it was coming because, like, what the YouTuber said. But, like, very shocking because he's very conservative, and how they feel about the LGBT. However, many conservatives are in fact LGBT, but they keep it hidden, and for good reason, because that party, well, does not like them at all. And and people who work for the government, when they get outed out, they find out the hard way just how much their peers don't like them, because they tend to get voted out, as George Santos is now starting to find out. Mr. Liar himself, like, I don't like getting into politics on this channel, but just to give you a quick context of what I'm talking about, basically House Speaker Kevin McCarthy was cool with George lying until he found out about the drag queen stuff. Now he has said last week that they're gonna start like looking into George, and if he broke any rules with all this lying stuff, he's out. So, yeah, that's the reason why they keep themselves hidden and stuff like that. Weird that they'll be associated with a party who does not like them. But, so it was kind of weird to see this side come from that of, like, Bill, because Bill is very rooted in conservative type ways and stuff. And so they kiss, and then at some point in time, Bill tells him, I've never been with a man, because he's kept that side hidden from him, because he cannot let his friends and family know because of their like conservative ways and stuff. And like I said before in many of my other videos, it sucks that people have to hide themselves from who they are. Still confused as to why he's part of a group that does not like him. Reminds me a little bit of that woman from The View, the Hispanic one. Like, that doesn't make no sense to me. Like, it just makes no sense to me. Kind of like Raven Simone. She makes no sense to me. Like, Raven Simone is like black, but she will not consider herself black. She calls herself dark white. Makes no sense to me. But anyways, and so at some point they clickety clack. And if this was on broadcast TV, you would probably never see two men like, engage in that type of like romance and everything, And so like, but of course this is streaming and you see a lot more of that. And go about 4 years later, we see their big fight. Frank wants to start like gussying up the neighborhood, wants to paint it, wanted to look nice, because Bill lives in a very drafty and dusty, dirty place. And Bill does not like people and stuff, so he doesn't want people over, but Frank has let him know, I have talked to a woman on the radio, I'm all like, wait, hold up, ain't you gay? So I was kind of confused. And so Bill's pissed. And then we find out who that woman is. It's Tess. But it's not just Tess, it's also Joel. And so, because Tess has died in the last episode, so she's back in the flashback. Bill does not like them being there. He keeps a gun on them the whole time. And he's very self-conscious of them. When Frank and Tess goes to talking and everything, Joel and like Bill starts to talk and they somehow start to bond. Well, anyways, Frank lets them know later on in the episode he sold one of his guns to Joel. That's that tiny gun on the waist that we saw that Ellie wanted. And so we start to see more of the bond and relationship from that of Frank and Bill. Them like blushing over strawberries and everything, growing, because Frank grew that for like Bill and stuff, because Bill hunts food and cooks him like things like rabbit and stuff like that. And it's really touching to see Frank bring out the best in that of Bill, because Bill is not used to all this like happiness and joy, you know what I'm saying? He lives his life like judging everybody and being paranoid of everybody, but yet falling in love with somebody was able to bring that other side of him out. He is finally starting to be a actual human being. Well, just like Bill told him, he had to be scared of like the living, just like in The Walking Dead. Their place gets attacked at night, and we get to see a cool, brief action scene. Some people are getting electrified by a gate. Some people are getting taken out by guns. Other people are getting hit with flames and everything. But Bill ends up getting shot. And it is Frank who has to nurse him back to health. And I thought we was going to lose Bill at first. But no, he survives it. And, as time passes by, they keep living their lives and they go jogging and this and that. But then sadly, tragedy happens. This is where it's a big shift from the game. Frank has taken ill. I don't know what kind of illness he has, but basically it's some form of paralysis. He is paraplegic now and has to be I can't talk. Live the rest of his life like in a wheelchair. It's even to the point where Bill tells him stop getting out the wheelchair. You have to lay in bed because your feet will turn blue. And Frank told him that it took a long time to get in this wheelchair. He is in extraordinary pain, but they are still living their lives. Bill is now nursing him back to health to the best of his ability. Same way Frank did to him. And now we see Frank is like a painter, and the house looks completely different. It is more vibrant with paintings and this and that, something Bill would have been opposed of years ago, but has now accepted into his life. And so I'm thinking that Frank has cancer because it's so painful. And of course, there's no chemo and all this other stuff. And they don't talk to the outside world. Joel and Tess were the only people they talked to. Sadly, Frank lets them know that he can't take the pain no more. And it's where we get another change from like that of the game. Frank tells him that he wants one last good day with Bill and then he wants to be taken out. Bill, of course, does not want to do this, but he does it anyways. He wants one last dinner. Then he wants to lay in bed and have Bill hold him. But he wants Bill to spike his wine with all these pills he crushed up in it. So he makes him a dinner. They have some wine. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way Bill is going to do that without taking himself out too. And he does. He spikes his drink as well. This is not what Frank wanted, but he's all like, it's for the best, you know what I'm saying? And these two get to die alone and everything. Because Bill tells him, you gave me meaning in life. You gave me something to look over, something to protect. He brought out the best side of Bill, and Bill never knew he had that in him. And Bill has literally told him, you know what, in these past 10 years, I've lived a good life and everything because I had you in my life. And so he's all like, I'm old and, I'm ready to leave too and everything. He's completely healthy. So like I said before, they have their drink, they go lock themselves in their room, and then we see Ellie and we see Joel show up weeks later. not Frank, but Bill has left Joel a letter. This is different, and I'll get why it's different in the game. The game is a lot more disturbing. And so basically he tells him, those two are the same because they were put on this world to protect people. That's why they're here during these bad times. He lets Joel know he hates him still and everything. But, take all the weapons in my house you need and protect Tess. Because he realizes that even though Joel would never say this, him and Tess were more than just friends. Because when Tess died, he didn't want to say bye to her and stuff. And he still doesn't trust Ellie with her being bit and stuff. So they get the car battery they need and they go looking for Joel's brother. Ellie has never been in a car. Joel is very upset about the whole Frank and Bill thing. He considered them friends, which is something he lacks in this show. He doesn't have many. And, of course, Bill leaves him the truck and everything. Ellie gets her signature, palm tree shirt and everything. And they start listening to music as they're driving off. And how this is different in the game is that in the game, you never meet Frank at all. Frank left Bill a long time ago because they could not get along. And then so Frank ends up getting bit. And then he hangs himself because if you die, you don't turn and get infected. And so he left Bill a note talking about, I hate you and I hate your guts and you drove me away from you. And dying was a whole lot better than being with you. That's a whole really, really, really messed up way of looking at it. And it probably rubbed some LGBT people the wrong way, which is probably why the creator changed it for the show. However, one thing the LGBT hates is when they always kill off gay characters. And once again, they have did this trope of freezing, fridging a character. And they fridged two LGBT characters in this series. I don't know how the LGBT is going to react to this. Me, on the other hand, the outsider looking in, Frank and Bill was two cool characters. If they was going to change so much in this episode, why didn't they keep them alive and everything? Bill, of course, is played by Ron Swanson himself from Parks and Rec, Nick Offerman. And, the dude was basically just Ron Swanson, but just a little bit different and stuff. But all in all, this was a very touching, meaningful episode that, really had some heart to it. It just sucks there ain't no zombies. But then again, back to this whole bread situation in the grain. Joel explains to that of Ellie, this whole thing did indeed spread by grain and bread. So at least now people know how this virus really started as opposed to The Walking Dead. Well, we still have no idea. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.